Okay. Selamat pagi. Oh, great. Ohayo gozaimasu. And good morning. Saya Rika. That's as far as my Indonesian goes, except a little surprise at the end. I'm very excited to be here. Thank you very much, Hendra and Nima and team, for inviting me. I live in the United States on the West Coast. I'm originally from Japan. I flew here from Luxembourg to be here with you. It was a little bit of a long flight, but I know it's going to be worth it. So I am here to talk to you about sustainable innovation at the speed of light and the edge of space. So strap in your seatbelt, and we're going to go for a ride together. The way that I would like to tell the story to you is first to remember the digidemic, which is what I refer to COVID-19. I know it seems like a long time ago, and also just yesterday of the pandemic, but it had a remarkable effect on how AI has accelerated to where we are today. And I'm also going to talk to you about how we can reconcile AI sustainability with the speed of light at the edge of space and thinking about AI for sustainability. Okay, so first let's do a little trip back in time and look at the impact that the pandemic had on the acceleration of digital assets and the digitization of processes. We all experienced it. We all had to adopt to a new world of virtualization, and there was this massive increase in the amount of digital ecosystems. And what we saw as well coinciding with that, this would not be a presentation from a consultant if I didn't have some sort of matrix or some sort of grid. And so this is my gratuitous image for today. This is Gartner's 2021 to 2023 Emerging Technology Roadmap. What you see here is basically the ecosystem of digital innovation compartmentalized in security, digital workspace, IT automation, storage and database, compute infrastructure, platform services, and network. And this is a kaleidoscope and a burst of technologies that emerged in various phases from in concept to planning and pilot to deployment and deployment completion. Fortunately, NTT data is across all of these domains. And so this was more than 100 emerging technologies that burst onto the scene on the foundations of digitized assets and digitalized processes. Now, concurrently with that, one of the things that I started to pay attention to is sustainability is something that has been very much a personal passion project of mine, is that before the pandemic, between 2016 and 2018, you had these topics that were coming up in the media. Perhaps CIO Insights, our media partner, can vouch for this, is there started to be some of these technologies and how it's connected with sustainability, and then lo and behold, between 2019 and 2021, you saw this concentration and this pairing of the concept of sustainability and digital innovation and technologies. And so I looked at this and I had my own experience. I was living in Los Angeles temporarily at the beginning of the pandemic, and one day I went outside and I could see the mountains. Now, for those of you who have lived in smog cities, seeing the mountains is a rarity. And then I also started hearing people saying that they saw deer in their front yard, or they saw coyotes. They started to see wildlife. How many of you saw more wildlife while you were stuck at home nearby in your yard? And so these were some of the things that I started to observe, and I thought, I want to do a little bit more research. I think my hypothesis is that the pandemic and this burst of digital innovation had a role to play in enhancing and amplifying everybody's consciousness of sustainability personally, in community, in business, and startup ecosystem. I lived in Silicon Valley for 17 years, so I have a very deep and wide network in Silicon Valley. I enrolled in a master's program at the University of Leeds, and I did a master's in sustainable business leadership. It was a combined MBA together with a Master of Science in Environment, and I published this book where it was an ode to Nassim Taleb's book, The Black Swan, where he writes about catastrophic events in human history. And I wanted us to remember the pandemic as a time that was catastrophic, especially for those who couldn't get toilet paper. But it was a time when sustainability really emerged within the consciousness of industry, business, and local community. But I'm not here to sell my book. I'm here just to share with you my own deep research that I did in this space. And of course, this primed the pump of this emerging technologies around AI. Now, my brother, who's older than me, was pursuing a PhD in AI in the 1990s. So I've been across AI in conversations with my brother, and of course, AI has been around for decades. So it's an overnight boom, 80 years in the making. I'll talk about another overnight boom that's a very personal story in a moment that's related to this. You'll see how. And so the background to where we are with AI, and this is an overly simplified timeline on this, and I apologize about the resolution here. Please reach out to me. I have my contact information at the end for a better resolution on the slide. But the personal story that I have of the overnight boom in the making was this year here, 2006. It's the year that NVIDIA released CUDA. It's also the year that I joined NVIDIA. So, of course, when I joined NVIDIA, we were a couple of buildings off San Tomas Expressway. Nobody could pronounce NVIDIA because we spelled it NVIDIA. So people were saying NVIDIA, Vidia, don't know how to spell it. But this is when Jensen wrote programming language for GPUs. People are like, why are you wasting time writing programming languages for GPUs? We're using this in games and developers. And I was in developer relations, and I was also in the mobile group, which I'll talk about in a moment. But as you can see here are some key milestones of how we got to where AI has become the fascination topic for every sector, every industry, indeed for our everyday lives now today. So this is my second gratuitous chart as a consultant or recovering consultant. This is the hype cycle for generative AI, one of the most recent ones. Now, the reason why many of us are on this journey together and so excited and anxious, perhaps, is that there's this tremendous amount of backlog of all the different things that are coming behind what many of us are already overwhelmed and like, okay, so there's all of this stuff coming up, but the excitement around this is that everybody here is a leader and an agent. Yes, you are an agent. It's not just AI. You are an agent of this change and harnessing and directing how all of this is going to evolve. And so I'm not here to go into details. I'm not the expert. Charlie Dubeck, who you'll hear from, is the expert on these things. But just know that every aspect of this are the things that we are actively working with our clients on being on this journey together. Now, I've been to Indonesia before, and I've been to Jakarta before, but I've also been to Bali. And Bali is a surfer's paradise, as we all know. So, as for those of you who are local or live here in Indonesia, you should be excited because this looks like an amazing wave. So get your surfboards or your boogie boards, or if you're just surf with your body, let's go for the ride together. Now, in the meantime, there has also been this great deal of anxiety as well around the areas where these AI machines are going to be fostered and thrive, which are in data centers. In NTT data, we are number 3 in data centers, so this is something that we're very present to and very conscious of. And as a result of the digitization of assets, the digitalization of processes, and cloudification at the edge, private, public cloud, all of this, and again, Charlie's domain, is that data centers have been labeled as critical infrastructure. Same water, energy, and in terms of public services, now this whole concept of sovereign AI, sovereign data, for countries to be able to drive their own future. So data centers have become a critical infrastructure for governments and nation states all around the world. And within this context, as many of you know, but for those of you who don't, the whole infrastructure of data centers, and now with AI coming in and an incredible amount of concern that there is related to the amount of power that is going to be needed to be able to drive and fuel this growth. And when we look at this from NTT Group, so I sit within NTT Group today, and what we've been examining is the hungry, hungry hippo phenomena of the data centers and what is the commensurate rise in energy demands that will be coupled with the increase in data volume that we'll be processing. And so there's data and all kinds of data, but more or less all of them are pointing to this rapid acceleration, and the amount of energy that AI is going to consume will equal the amount of the whole country of Japan very, very soon, and all of these headlines that are happening. And so the question is AI and sustainability copacetic? In other words, can they coexist? Now, I will go back to my NVIDIA days. By the way, I joined NVIDIA in 2006. I left in 2010. I was there for 4 years. I vested stock. And when I left NVIDIA, I sold my stock. So you know where to find me at the reception. I might be having a drink or two just to get over the trauma I'm going on stage right now. But you know what the good news is? If I hadn't held my stock and had a very nice chunk of change, I might not be on here stage in front of you today. So that's the good news, right? Yes, okay, great. So when I was at NVIDIA, I was in the mobile GPU business unit. We were doing discrete GPU on phones. The use case was H.264 acceleration, which is video acceleration. And the use case, the early win that we had was with Telecom Italia, because the Italians wanted to watch soccer on their phones. So that was a use case in 2007, around that timeline. But the thing is, we couldn't keep the phones in our pockets because they would get so hot, and they wouldn't last very long. So I experienced firsthand how much heat is generated, and hence the cooling that's needed, and that's part of the power that needs to go in. And to Jensen's credit, Jensen is, of course, looking to continue innovating GPU architecture and all that. But even alongside of that, Sam Altman, who needs no introduction, still says, we still don't appreciate the energy needs of this technology. There's no way to get there without a breakthrough. We need fusion, or we need radically cheaper solar plus storage or something. And so around data centers, yes, we are looking at how we can use liquid cooling, innovations in that regard. AMD and ARM and NVIDIA, which are the stalwarts within the GPU ecosystem, and then, of course, Intel right behind, they're all trying to figure out how they're going to really advance the architecture. As you know, in compute, Moore's law has existed, so is there a way for us to be able to bring that down? And there's also, my husband is a nuclear chemist, so he will be the first to say nuclear, and that scares some people, but there's also hydrogen, right? So there's a lot of really great innovations that are happening. And what I wanted to highlight was one area in particular at NTT Group, and together with NTT Data, where we're saying, okay, how might we find new paradigms of the way that the whole entire compute ecosystem is going to move forward. And this is where I'm going to talk about sustainable innovation and AI with the speed of light. So I'm going to get a little bit technical, but not too technical because it's not my area of expertise. But what I can share with you is that NTT Group had been starting to examine from several years ago this idea of wiring within the compute ecosystem. So today, we run on electrical wiring, as many of you know. And the idea and the concept is, what happens if we move to optical wiring? Hence, with the speed of light, in other words, using photonics, and looking at the physics impacts of that. And what you can see from this chart is that there's a massive energy savings if we can move to optical wiring. And that's when, in 2020, NTT, together with Sony and Intel, we founded something called the ION Global Forum, which stands for Innovative Optical and Wireless Network, ION. Because what we believe can happen, if we can move from
electronic to photonic systems, then what we will be able to do is reduce the amount of energy, number one, which is key because of where we're going with AI and GPU ecosystem. Number two, it's higher throughput, 125 times and 200 times faster. So this is what we believe the future can hold if we can get to this point of being able to move from electronic to photonic systems, and NTT is working on that. We started with 3 members of the ION Global Forum in 2020. We are now at more than 140 members. And these include NVIDIA, includes Nokia, Microsoft, it includes the whole value chain of the compute ecosystem. And it's a bold, audacious, and ambitious vision. But NTT Docomo was right there with wireless in 1997 when NTT launched Docomo, and we had iMode, which is a walled garden of content, which in my humble Japanese national opinion was pioneering mobile content before iTunes. So we at NTT believe that we can help lead the charge on this significant transition of AI and sustainable innovation. How many of you have been to Japan? Raise your hand. For the Japanese people in the room, don't raise your hand. Okay. So for those of you who haven't, this is an open invitation. There is about 1 month left to visit the World Expo this year is in Osaka in 2030. The next one will be in Riyadh. But this one, part of my job is responsible for welcoming dignitaries and VIPs, which all of you are VIPs, to come to the pavilion because we are showcasing what we're doing with ION there. And it aligns very well with the Indonesia pavilion, where visitors can go to the Indonesia pavilion and also experience Indonesia's vision for a sustainable future for not just Indonesia, but how Indonesia is a cornerstone to ASEAN. So, and by the way, the Indonesia pavilion is within a few minutes walk, so no excuses left. Please come, let me know when you're going to come visit. I would love to host you there. Okay, so what was really remarkable and beautiful is that, well, let me start with a small background. A year and a half ago, when I moved into holdings from NTT Data, the team there said, we'd like for you to work on space and satellite initiatives at NTT. I was like, space and satellite, I've read a lot of science fiction. My mother was a big Isaac Asimov and Robert Heinlein fan, but I didn't how many of you would like to go to the moon? If you could go to the moon now, would you go? Yes? Raise your hand high. I want to see who are the moonwalkers. Okay. What about Mars? Would you go to Mars with Elon Musk? No Martians? Okay, the few Martians. Okay, some Martians. A year and a half ago, I had no desire, plus my husband, who is a bit of a tinfoil guy. He doesn't think that we actually got to the moon in the 1960s, but that's beside the point. So I didn't really I was like, okay, space satellite, but I've been in this space for a year and a half, and what was really remarkable and beautiful was the performance this morning. I did not talk to the dancers. Otherwise, I might have worn a better outfit to compete with their beautiful costumes. But their dance was in front of the moon. And what's really incredible is that space and satellite, as you will see, is going to have a much more intimate relationship with each of you in the coming days and months. So going back to ION, which is innovative optical and wireless network idea, we are also working on the idea of bringing photonic communication into orbit. And so there's this idea of space-based data centers. Now, that is not putting these massive buildings into space. So that's what it's not. What it is imagining a future, which is what we are working on right now at NTT, is this vision for a space-integrated computing network. And so for us at NTT, the idea is that down here you have ION terrestrially, where we're enabling the photonic connectivity. We're working on something called HAPS, which are high altitude platform systems. They're either balloons or they look like planes, but they're solar powered and they're unmanned. And then you have the place of Earth observation, Leo constellation here, and connectivity, and then geosatellites. And so just two things that I'll call out here before I focus on a particular area is that when I got involved in space and satellite, and I knew about Starlink, right, before going in, I thought Leo, like satellites were way out there, right? We watched Star Wars and Galaxy far, far away, but it's not. A LEO satellite is going to be roughly 1,200 kilometers from Earth. If you could drive up, you could drive there. And so I really want to emphasize how tangible this is in terms of where we're going with this technology. And there's been massive amounts of investments that have been going into space and satellite because Elon Musk has been helping to drive the cost down of launch. He's also helping to privatize the various use cases around space and satellite. It is not only defense and intelligence, but alongside of that, unfortunately, because of the geopolitical situation being what it is, every country is massively investing in space and satellite domain awareness for a variety of reasons. India and China are competing to see who can colonize the moon. Elon is dead set on getting to Mars. Some of you will go with him. And so what does this have to do with sustainable innovation? Well, I want to drill down on a particular area, Marble Visions. So there was a picture of the Earth that was taken in 1971 by Apollo 17 mission. That was a picture of the Earth. And some of you might have heard the story because the astronauts went up, allegedly, went up into space, and in 1971, when the spaceships had less compute power than the device you have in your hand, by the way, but they went up into space and they looked back at the Earth and they thought, wow, that planet looks really fragile. And they called that picture the blue marble because it looked like a glass marble that looked fragile enough to be broken. And so Marble Visions is the name of the company that NTT Data has formed in collaboration with Canon and Pasco in Japan. And we'll be putting Earth observation satellites into orbit in early 2027. And what we will do is we will take advantage of capabilities we have built at NTT Data over 10 years called Marble Visions. It's about creating these high-resolution 3D maps. And we'll be creating this vertically integrated capability where we're going to have satellites in orbit capturing pictures of from space of ports, cities, mining sites, forests, electricity grids, large physical infrastructure domains, which Indonesia is extremely rich with all of those areas, energy, oil and gas, and the ability to render these dynamic digital twins. But rather than me telling you the story, let me let a video that our Tangity team created with an AI voiceover share a little bit more with you.
What if we could see our world in real time, not just as momentary snapshots? Our Earth is facing mounting challenges: aging infrastructure, growing urban demands, and the volatile shifts of climate change. Businesses and communities alike need a foundation of resilience now more than ever. Introducing Marble Visions, powered by NTT Data's AW3D technology, trusted by over 4,000 projects across 140 countries. This platform sets a new standard with near real-time, high-resolution data and advanced 3D image rendering. Marble Visions transforms data into actionable insights, empowering future-ready decisions. With NTT Data adding Earth observation satellites to a growing constellation globally, combined with the acceleration of visual computing, Marble Visions integrates multi-source data into one unified platform. Think of it as our world's dynamic digital twin, enriched by AI-powered insights like feature extraction and change detection, empowering industry leaders to assess the past, understand the present, and preempt the future. In urban development, Marble Visions will enable public sector leaders and city planners to better manage aging infrastructure and reinforce urban landscapes that optimize business growth, enrich community spaces, and strengthen climate resilience. In energy and resources, including the utilities, forestry, and mining sector, Marble Visions will help optimize infrastructure and resource management, driving efficient, renewable projects that meet the demands of a sustainable future. In insurance and finance, our platform will support teams to better assess risks and optimize claims processing and support seamless supply chains. That's just the beginning. Marble Visions will be a catalyst for innovation across industries, boosting climate resilience, enhancing operational efficiency, while keeping our communities healthy and safe. Together, we can build the smart economies of the future, where Earth observation will pave the way forward, delivering $700 billion in value and reduce emissions by up to 2 billion gigatons CO2e. Get in touch and ignite a brighter tomorrow today.
So that's pretty exciting. $700 billion of value from Earth observation. And so we're very excited about that. Please come talk to me if you'd like to learn more, because the Marble Visions team would definitely love to talk to you. So let's go back to so great. Technology leaders like NTT and NTT Data are driving forward and investing. NTT invests $3.5 billion every year on R&D, and a lot of the space and satellite innovations I own, these are all manifestations of that. And the question still becomes, okay, that's great, but there's still the question of, let's figure out if this is more generally aligned. So I just wanted to bring in some third-party research. I am pursuing a doctorate. I know at this stage, why am I doing that? Again, another conversation over drinks. But my doctorate is going to be focusing on this very notion of where AI and sustainability are going to be converging. And so I've been doing a lot of different research. So hopefully this is enlightening for you and inspirational. So there was a study that was done in terms of saying, okay, how many people and researchers and smart minds are researching this convergence of AI and sustainability? And the good news is, as I mentioned, and this is purely a coincidence in terms of the synergy, but around the time that I was writing my book, Beyond the Black Swan, is also when you saw this huge surge in AI and sustainability research, in articles and papers that have been written about that and bringing that together. And what you see here is a clustering from natural sciences to humanities on the bottom, and over here is socio-ecological concepts. So from vegetation to hydrology, rainfall, to clean energy, to remote sensing, which, by the way, this Earth observation is an example of remote sensing, and then industry, you have these clusters of research and bright minds and R&D, and the universities here in Indonesia and all over the world are looking to advance where these can be copacetic. In a different study, a group of researchers took the UN SDGs and they broke it down, and they did a very in-depth study of saying, okay, out of the different UN SDGs, which I'm sure all of you have seen, or at least seen the pin and all the different colors, but they basically break down into economy, environment, and society. And across all of those, you basically have a breakdown of where and how is AI helpful and productive, or is it detrimental and impacting it? And the results are very clear. The positive impacts of AI towards sustainable development goals is 3 times the negative impacts. So this is hopefully inspiring to you. So that's what I just wanted to share, a tiny bit of insight into how I have been tracking and been very involved in this domain of looking at digital innovation, how this has been expanding, the genesis of the current fervor around AI being on the heels of the digidemic, And now, hopefully, it's a little bit clearer how we can reconcile AI sustainability with the speed of light with photonic systems at the edge of space. We will see some of you physically in the edge of space, it sounds like, at some point soon, and how we might be able to think about AI, not AI, but what about sustainability, or AI versus sustainability, but AI for sustainability. This is where I will end with my surprise of my Indonesian or bahasa. Habis gelap terbitala terang. So anytime that there's anxiety, through community and collaboration, we can come out into the sunshine and illumination of the possibilities and igniting the future today. So with that, that is my email. That's where you can find me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with all of you. I will be here all day and into the evening, and I look forward to having conversations with many of you. Thank you very much.